pursue and put your dream to the test. We will attempt to get started on time and try to finish somewhere close to our end of time. That's 5 minutes off. Well, I was going by it. I don't have the other clock. Is that later or slow?
It's 5 after 7.
Well, I start 5 minutes slow. We're going 5 minutes longer. I get 5 extra minutes. Actually, the rule is if I start 5 minutes late, I get 15 minutes longer. We'll see how it works out. I don't know how to control things where I'm asking a lot of input back and forth. I know how to control things where I'm presenting and I know when to stop. I don't know how to control so much when there's a lot of discussion going on. So we'll do our best we can when it comes to our clock. We are recording this again, so everybody say hi to people watching at home. And if you miss one of these, they are available on our website. The first session, what we did last week, is there, and this one will be up in the next day or so. So for your friends who say, I missed it, say, watch it on the website. It's right there. You just click on it, and it's a YouTube video, and it comes right up, and you can watch it at home. Last week I used the analogy of we're like an airplane on the tarmac, and we're going to get the engines going. It's going to feel like we're going slow. We're going to get faster and faster and faster. Eventually, we're going to take off. So for some of you who felt like last week was a little slow, our stuff you've already heard before. The reason for that is I had to assume somebody was coming into this from the very, very beginning and wanted to catch everybody up to speed. So hopefully today we're going to get a little bit more speed on the runway. I'm not sure we're going to take off yet. But we're at least going to get down the runway a little bit faster. Before we do that, let's open with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this night. Thank you for a family of faith that is interested in being faithful to ministry in this context and in this culture of which we live. Help us tonight to discern your will, to listen to one another, and to hear what each says, but most of all, be plugged into your spirit. We make this our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. Back up here. Our outline for these 6 sessions is the book by John Maxwell, Put Your Dream to the Test. It is a book primarily written for people individually to go and talk about their purpose in life and what their life stream is. So it's a book written for individuals. I am mishing it a little bit and attempting to make it fit us corporately as a corporate thing, which it is. It's good. It's just we're looking at different things. But he suggests we ask 10 questions. And last week we started with the question, is our dream really our dream? And we talked about that. Today we're looking at questions number 2 and questions number 3. Do we clearly see our dream, and are we depending on factors within our control to achieve our dream? And the next week we'll do 4 and 5 and so forth until we get to the 6th week down the road. So that's the outline, the format of what we're doing. Last week, under the question, is our dream really our dream, we had to state the dream. And Mike Hyatt says if you have a clear vision, you'll eventually attract the right strategy. If you don't have a clear vision, no strategy will save you. And so last week I would say we articulated fairly clearly, I think, a vision that all of you seem to agree with. And that vision was this: become an active and vibrant church for all generations with intentional focus on ministry to the younger generations. Now that you've had a week to think about that, does anybody have anything to add? You're still on board with this? Object? Add to? Anything? Yes, Bobby?
We talked about intergenerational stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we need to put that as part of our dream.
For me, it's included in that. It's all part of it. When I say a vibrant church for all generations, I think intergenerational is part of it. And then focused on your primary, and even to say primary focus on younger generations, to me is also saying part of that is intergenerational ministry. So.
I'm just afraid if we don't intentionally say it,
Right.
we may not intentionally do it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Let me work on that in our head. We'll go to Marty.
Because this is a large room, could you repeat the comments?
Sure. Bobby was suggesting that the statement needs to say something specifically about being intergenerational. And that's what I was suggesting, is that it's included, inferred in it, but she's saying more specifically.
What do you mean by intergenerational? Something about that? I'm not clear.
Well, my experience has to do with musical things that we have done way in the past that included children all the way up to grandparents, all rehearsing, singing, and doing things together. And I think that kind of intentional stuff is good.
And I think that's what that means, what this means. So we'll work on that. All right, moving on. A clear dream. We have a vision. If this is our vision, become a vibrant church for all generations, and we're going to do specific focus on ministry to the younger generations. That's the vision. A clear dream makes a general idea. Is that a general idea? That's a general idea, right? Makes a general idea very specific. And that's what we're going to try to talk about tonight. Some, not all, but some specifics of what a church in the middle, we used that language last week, a church that is in the middle, that is equally committed to, just a second, equally committed to the generations that are here, but also wanting to reach out to generations who are not here, and not just say we're going to become a rock band church and forget all of you, and not say we're not going to care about your needs, and we're only going to do the things we've always done before just because it meets our needs. We're going to be in the middle. And what does specifically that look like? Does that sound like a challenge to you? It really is. It really is a very hard, difficult challenge. So there's some, oh, Debbie, I'm sorry, what did you want to?
No, it's a whole thing, a balanced church.
Yes, a balanced, exactly. Tonight I want to ask some questions around some specific ministries. And the questions are these. What are we doing? What are we already doing to be a vibrant church? What are we already doing? What specific ideas do we need to add? Specifically, what is non-negotiable for you that cannot leave? That make sense? What is the non-negotiable? This has to stay to be part of our church. And then what do we need to add to do the focus on young adult ministry, our younger generational ministry? Those are the questions we're going to talk about tonight. Wish us luck. Marty?
Is it too early to define what you mean by younger generations?
People younger than most everybody in this room. 30s and under, mostly. Specifically college, high school, under. But I would go 30s and under. Generally. Again, I've said this, I can't say this any more times. Talking generationally has its downfalls. I get it. We're using it as a broad category to get the gist. But to say, I know all the downfalls, I get it. But generally speaking, 30s and under have different needs, generally speaking, than 60 and up.
They're the people that aren't here, so.
Right. Yeah. And generally speaking, the needs of people who are 30 and under, worship style, educational style, thinking style, theology, generally speaking, are different than the needs of 60 and up. Generally. You agree with that? Okay.
Would it be safe to stretch your age boundary a little bit up? Because personally, your young families, your people that have children, they're really going to be primarily in their 30s if they're school-age children.
Right.
And though we have some of those attending that show up on Sunday morning, I would think that part of our mission would be to get them more involved in the life of the church in other aspects that they're not participating in now. So if we aim 30 and under, we're still going to miss, because as I look around, other than Tiffany, you might be the youngest person in this room.
No, Darlene's younger than me.
Oh, Darlene,
And Mike.
and Mike. Oh, I didn't see Mike over there, but,
Yeah.
so I'm wondering if we can stress that generational.
And speaking of which, here come the Warnocks, which are right in the generation of what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to leave anybody out. I'm not trying to. I've really struggled with this presentation today for exact questions like you're asking. I feel like I'm walking on shaky ground, not because I don't believe in what we're doing, but because the definitions are so fuzzy. And so there's no like, this is a simple answer, let me just give it to you. So yes, I don't want to leave anybody out. All generations is the dream.
But if you take a look at the demographic of this church, if you take a look at the ages and how many people are in the specific sets of ages, the huge gap percentage-wise is going to be anybody that's, 45 and under. I mean, that's really where we've got this
And that-
giant opportunity.
Something just hit me. Why I put it in that 30 range is because the majority of what our focus is the Gulf to Bay property, and my thinking is how are we using that property, and I think that property is going to be mostly targeted to 30 and under. That's why I said what I was saying. I didn't think about that till just now. So it's hard to move from the whole ministry to there, and how's that going to be used and all of that stuff. To be honest with you, this is the first time I can remember that I'm presenting stuff that is not just, here, let me tell you. Because I have this information, and I have a lot of information, but we're really genuinely working this through together. So, good question. Thank you for that. On your handouts, and hopefully an elder is at one table, and I ask that you listen to each other. And I want you to do this as quick as possible. List 3 things that we are currently doing in the concept of worship. Only thinking about worship. 3 things that we're currently doing to be a vibrant church. Yeah. To your tables. I'm sorry. Table conversation. Yes. What is non-negotiable that can't go away in worship? And what would you like to see added to make it more engaging for you? Not what we should do for somebody else, what we should do, what is your. This is in the context of we're not leaving this. What's not going to get left? That's what I want to hear from you now. And then the next question we're going to do is what do we need to add to do this? Okay? So right now the question is what's not getting left? What is non-negotiable for you? Go for it. All right, here we go. What are 3 things that cannot go away for you? This table. That's fine. Scripture, prayer, communion, love, music. What kind of music?
That doesn't matter.
But it just has to have some music. Debbie? Right. Okay? This table. Shh.
Which one? With regard to folks ministry on younger generations, is that the question?
No, the question is for you, what cannot go away in your worship?
Oh, well, I put down corporate prayer and, among other things, keep using the organ occasionally.
Okay? The organ cannot go away.
Especially after we just spent 30 grand on it.
Good point.
Huh?
Good point. So the organ can't go away. What on this table? Children's time.
And explain, a lot of the adults see that and see the point and go, oh, that's
Yeah, I know. And then we get yelled at like we're not supposed to be talking to the adults. So it's a touchy.
The choir.
Choir,
And some
corporate,
And some sanctity, even when we're doing the cash.
Would you repeat that?
I'm
looking
trying to
for it.
understand what you mean.
Could you,
I said maintain some sanctity of
Sanctity.
worship.
in the music?
Yeah, that's gonna mean a
No,
lot of
the
different things for a lot of different
atmosphere.
people.
Sure.
What is sanctity for one is not gonna be sanctity for another.
It's the coffee cup and
Yeah.
the pews.
For some, that's keep your mouth silent, sit there, you know, like this is sanctity, and for some, that's not sanctity at all, that's insanity. So that's a hard one to measure, I guess is my point. What you guys got back here?
I'm just observing.
Tell them you're non-negotiable.
My non-negotiable is Sunday morning service.
Sunday morning, has to be there Sunday morning. Actually, I have no problem with that.
As the anchor.
As the, I'm not saying you
Understand,
can't have
that's-
others.
Yeah,
The anchor, because many churches have gone to taking it completely out of Sunday morning as if somehow that chases people away.
right,
And that goes to the next question, which you haven't asked that one yet.
right. And I fight against Saturday nights and all that stuff, but it's more selfish reasons than that. It's like I want a day off. More than anything, huh?
Substantive or a message with meaning, substantive.
Well, we better be looking for it. Yeah, thank you. All right, what do you guys have?
Well, sermon application of daily life.
Okay,
There you go.
Preaching.
yeah, scripture, yeah.
Would you repeat that, please?
Preaching scripture, sermon applicable to daily life. I heard you guys in your conversation, you haven't said it here, but to be liturgical. Was that
The liturgy was important to several people.
right? And the reason why I wanted to highlight that, because I heard it when you were talking, for over here, if that's a non-negotiable, over here, it's please don't ever make me do that again.
But you asked us.
No, I genuinely want that. I'm using this to highlight how we are going to continue to do this and what's important to you. And I do think, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the most part, with some minor exceptions, all of the non-negotiables that you put out there we're doing. Correct?
We are.
You seem to be happy with our worship service the way it is now. Genuinely. With some, mostly.
I think Dennis, as we look at this idea of what's non-negotiable for us in this room and what we need to do to reach out, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what's happened in the church is we've taken we've drawn this line in the sand. Either we're gonna be this, really, liturgical, we're gonna say the responses, we're gonna use the pipe organ, we're gonna do this, we're gonna be very traditional.
We're gonna be over here.
Or we're gonna be over here, and
And you guys can either get over it or go somewhere
Well,
else.
And it frustrates me because it says the people on this side that want it traditional have no flexibility to find value in the other, but at the same time, when we take all of the other out of the contemporary style, then the younger generation doesn't learn the value of some of those things. I was in this church when we had a contemporary 8:30 service and a traditional 11 o'clock service, and we took the Lord's Prayer out of the 8:30 service. You don't take the Lord's Prayer out of church, okay? And I was 15 years younger, so I was part of that younger generation, and that's just wrong.
At that same time, when they took the Lord's Prayer out of
Now you know why I was so.
everybody, the children went to the traditional service.
Yeah, I have told you. Let me give you this real quick.
I'm looking for the blend. I'm looking for the thing where the younger generation, you need to learn some of this stuff because some of it's valuable. Older generation, you need to flex up a little bit and understand that some of the stuff that working for them can also work for you.
Come back to that, Sue Moore.
Well, I would respond to that and say, I think a lot of tables have mentioned music, and I think that's the one area we're doing that. We have the choir singing a variety of hymns, we have soloists, we have, instrumentalists. We are, I think, currently offering at least.
Very blended service.
Very blended, and I don't like to hear the either or. I
I'm
think
with
the
you.
challenge is to be both and do it well. I think you can have liturgy and be contemporary. Does that make sense? So,
Jim McCormick.
The question is, in regards to worship, there's three things that are non-negotiable that we need to keep doing to meet your needs.
Yeah,
So
we
these
actually
are
moved on to
needs
that.
that people that are expressing for them.
Yes.
So let's don't try to make what we think we need be what somebody else thinks they need.
I don't think that's what we're doing. I think what we're discussing now is we've sort of moved into the answer, trying to answer a very complicated question. And my take on this is I think in the mid-90s, churches were sold a crock of junk. That the problem was everybody needed to go get a rock band and some setups and a screen, and churches spent countless thousands of dollars doing that. But it wasn't the issue. It's a piece of the issue. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but many of you, our younger people, greatly dislike a lot of the music we sing. So,
Dennis, I get bored with some of the music we sing.
I stand back there going,
Six verses of,
Right.
how great is thy fortress.
okay, we got that.
Oh,
Moving on.
another one really?
Because music really is a huge piece of the issue. But again, my point is that we were sold that if we just go get us some guitars and some organists and pianists and keyboards and some drums, then all the young people will flock back to the church. When in fact, that's not the problem. The problem is theology. They don't buy your theology in a lot of places. That's the problem. Music is an expression and a piece of it, but not the majority of it. And everybody sold out, this is the issue. It wasn't the issue. The issue is we're in a theological transformation right now. So that's a completely another piece of the puzzle. Marty, then I want to move off music. Now you know why I've been shaking in my boots all day.
A question, or a suggestion from this table is that we be careful about using the word contemporary. Contemporary music, a lot of it's from the 60s. So, contemporary is
Actually, for Presbyterian, contemporary is the 16th century.
a ill-defined word. And one suggestion from our younger member here was is more modern music.
Modern music, progressive music.
No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, younger music.
Right.
Younger music.
Our discussion here, yes, Debbie.
Michaela, or one of Tina's daughters, writes music, and they like to do that, let them do it, let them sing it at church.
Right. The issue here is that for many of you, your non-negotiable list will not fly over here. Just won't. For many of you in this room are saying, we're very happy with the blend and we'll deal with it. And I do think that we're doing as good of a job as possible with what we're doing here so far. We have done a good job, I think, of blending. However, if we're going to be intentionally focused on younger people, one possible place is a space that is that's not hierarchical, that's a lot not liturgical, that is a lot more relaxed, and a coffee shop type environment to do worship. One of the issues of trying to do it in the church is they're just not going to come. so a different space is one option. Indian Rocks Baptist Church does Smiley Face Cafe. And they're modeling this, and it's doing very, very well down there. This is one possibility of how we can use the Gulf to Bay property. We will continue to be blended. We're on the path we're on. We're on. We're not leaving it. We're going to continue to add some. In 2 weeks from now, it's going to be a fantastic service. We're going to continue to do something like that. But, huh? What? Oh yeah. Well. Every week's a fantastic service. My point being that we're going to step outside our normal stuff. But to get people to come in the doors for the first time that will never ever go into there, this is one possibility. More relaxed type of environment. All right, I want to move on to the second category. Same structure. Spiritual development. In the category of spiritual development, what are we doing currently?
What does that mean? Volunteer?
Well, what I was saying here is this is one thing we can add. No. If you want to brainstorm, go for it. But let's not. Let's move on. We can talk about it later. Let's move on. Go into spiritual development. 3 things we're currently doing to develop you spiritually. You guys got quiet, so what you guys got over here? What are we doing good so far for spiritual development? Anybody, I don't care. Milestones of faith. Sunday school classes. So our Christian educational programming is developing you spiritually.
And I'm gonna let our older members, say Robbie or somebody, teaching the younger ones, being our own pre-K or
Right.
after.
Okay. What is Trinity doing to spiritually develop you people in the back? Or are you people in the front? Go ahead. No. Teaching style of being, this is the left, this is the right, what do you think? Confronting the controversies and being topical stuff, which again is all very modern. In the back?
The only one we would add to that is literal interpretation of the Bible is not required.
Yeah, good. I mean, we have a Bible? That was a joke. That was a joke.
We'll see if we can get you one.
It was a joke. I know, it's recorded. Somebody who said this to the Presbyterian, I'm gonna, yeah, the COM's gonna get this little 15-second soundbite, and I'll be up for heresy soon. Here we go.
You mentioned mission work.
Mission work.
Skycrest, the kids going to that.
Focus on mission. Have anything to add?
Yeah, you and Michael tie in your sermon and music pretty well.
Yeah, well, a lot of that is who picks the hymns, which happens to be that person over there, Bobby Hoops.
I always suggest, and I always suggest several.
Right, and yes, if you read the words often, more times than not, it's like, wow, that's what he just said. And to be honest with you, I don't go read the hymns. I don't focus on hymns. I just do what I'm going to do, and they end up matching me, which is kind of crazy. Yeah? Anything to add back there? Let's do this as a group work. 3 things, because I want to move on because we have a lot of stuff. So let's just shout out stuff. 3 things that just cannot go away for you.
In spiritual development.
Spiritual development. Sunday school cannot go away. And then here's a difference. Sunday school, can it go away for you? No, Sunday school, like 9 o'clock, 9:15 Sunday school. Could care less. And all I'm doing is showing differences. It's not a.
My non-negotiable was.
And I love it. I mean, I love it. All I'm doing is showing you that where the hard lines are going to be in this church in the middle.
I think beyond Sunday school, just adult and young people education. I think it can be Wednesday night or Sunday morning or whatever time.
Education, Christian education, and that you're a good Presbyterian because Christian education is Presbyterian exclamation point. We insist on education, and so yes, non-negotiable. Anything else? But does it have to be Sunday morning at 9:15? All right. Anybody else? Free thinking is non-negotiable, so not being force-fed to have to think this. Non-negotiable for some. That's a stretch for a lot of people, by the way. I mean, it sounds so easy, but so many people for so long have been force-fed what to think. To have the freedom to be able to free think is scary for them. And again, when I went back to in the 90s where we bought this whole can of worms about contemporary worship being the magic bullet, that was just such a small piece. The bigger piece was theological, to be able to free think, to be able to move past those boundaries that were there. Marty.
Prayer and 3 types of prayer, the corporate prayer, individual prayer, and our prayer chain.
Right. Anything else? Robbie has.
What about youth group and mission work? That would be
What
something.
about them?
Well, I would want that, I mean, that would definitely be a non-negotiable thing that I would want to keep as chair.
Yeah,
We
sure.
do mission work and youth group.
Right. All right. What do you think we need to add to do a better job of spiritual development of our people? Or even, let me push the question a little bit further. What do you think we need to add to meet the spiritual developmental needs of those people over here? Just throw out some ideas.
You're talking about the people that aren't here?
Yeah.
That we're going after, try to reach? What?
Yeah. So,
I just, to create a desire, a need, and a hunger for it. I mean, if you don't want something, you don't know what you need or could have if you don't know about it. And I don't know the answer to it, but it's,
I get you.
get hungry for it.
I get you.
In your coffee house setting that you spoke about earlier, offers an opportunity to do some spiritual development.
Relationship
It's
building.
very non-confrontational, it's very
Instructional.
yeah, it's very, in a sense, it's
Relational
non-instructional.
is
It's
the word
very
you're looking for.
relational.
My dear wife wasn't in church last Sunday, on the scene. And let her tell you the story about the gal that she had breakfast with on Sunday morning.
She said, I am a non-church family, and I decided I need to take my 2 boys, 16 and 12, to church, and I think they chose a Catholic church, and I don't know why, but anyway, they're sitting in the service, and her 12-year-old says, what's that guy doing on those sticks up there? And the mother says, well, that's Jesus on the cross. Well, what's he doing up there? Well, they nailed him to the cross. They nailed him to the cross? Well, why did they do that?
How do you reach those people?
Exactly.
I'll get there. I'll get there with a possibility. Does anybody have the answer? No. But we're going to talk about strategy next. Yeah, and I told the story back when I was in youth. When I first moved to Whitfield Presbyterian Church, I had about 8 or 9 or 10 neighborhood kids that had been coming to the church, to the youth group, and the youth leader was a questionable thing, I had to let her go. But they'd be coming to the youth group, and the first week I was there, I said, "You know who Adam and Eve are, right?" And they looked at me like, "What?" No clue. So, you know, for us to just think they're going to walk in the door and walk into our classroom and sit down in this kind of setting and go, "Okay, teach me," not going to happen.
Needs to be life skills.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. We'll get there. All right. Here's the piece I think we need to add to develop us spiritually as a church, and it's small groups. Because spiritual growth happens in relationships. Now here's the challenge. A lot of people over here would rather be the guy on the sticks than be in a small group. I've had all kinds of trouble with people already trying to get a small group going. They don't want to do another thing because they're already overburdened in church life. Don't give me another thing to do. I already have my circle of friends that I've been around forever. And the third one that comes up a lot is I am not talking about my life with 8 other people. Those 3 things are a barrier to small groups over here. Small groups over here is vital. Around the topic of relationship. Think about how the depths of relationships, I'm looking around in this room, those of you who've been here 60 years plus, 40 years plus. Think about how much you've grown in relationship with your brothers and sisters in the faith here. I think we need to intentionally add a small group ministry, even if it starts very, very tiny, around those that will. Not necessarily around an educational thing, but around homes. And this is a piece I think we need to add if we're going to get in over here. What do you think? Sue?
The challenge in that, and I agree, I mean, in the first Dennis episode, the other Dennis pastor, whatever, we had 13 small groups with 12 people in each group that went for years. It was a real intentional training, and we did it. The challenge I see in small groups, in coffee house ministry, is you're looking at the people who will be leading that, and then how, and I have this real thing about age and generations.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I hear every.
But who's going to facilitate a small group so it has depth and has life and are they trained? But is somebody who's 30 going to come to a small group that I'm facilitating? I don't know.
And it may be that we start with one that has 8 people around Mike or myself, us leading it, and that group gets trained and it builds from there. I don't know the answer to it. I know if we're going to be vibrant over here, this is a key piece we need to add.
Well, we have some small groups happening. We have a lunch bunch, the choir in its own way is a small group, but not in the dynamics of commitment.
Right.
So we've got the genesis of it, and I think it's a great way to grow a church. My concern is how do you take this vision statement and make it happen if this is the core leadership of the church?
I completely understand that question. Part of it's going to be what, and it's a question we're going to get to 7 or 8. What cost are we willing to pay? Part of it will be, especially from a staff perspective, we only have X amount of time. As an overall church, we only have X amount of volunteer hours. What are we willing to give up to get to that? And if our people truly are feeling like, all I do is church this, church that, church this, what can we get rid of? What are the non-negotiables that can, what are the non-negotiables that have to stay, but what are the things we can free up to do more relational ministry? Those are going to be some hard questions. And again, we're gonna narrow this thing down. Right now, we're just getting the.
It's just an issue to
Yeah,
deal with.
we're gonna deal with the issues. We're just getting, this is get it on the table first, and then we'll move on. Back there, Steve, do you have anything?
No, I agree with you 100%, but what I think, in answer to your question, what often can happen is that if you put together a small group of, say, 30 to 40 age group people doing like a home study, Cheryl and I did a couple of those years ago, basically traded the leadership around. We had the materials, the church provided the materials, we provided our own leadership for it. It didn't require somebody from the church to come in and do it for us.
Right.
We sort of took it and ran with it and did it amongst ourselves, and because it was a peer group that we did it with, it worked beautifully. We had a couple of those that we did that were, you know, very successful for the 10 of us that were in that group, you know.
And so the answer may be that we highlight 4, 5, 6 of us and free them up from everything else in the church to go do that. We're freeing you up to go do a small group in your home. We're not expecting you to do anything else. Go do that. You know, that may be the simple answer. Stephen.
I was in a church that was growing like bananas. I mean, it wasn't, remember, I was visiting. And the way they approached small groups was they did it short-term, interest-based. They didn't care about depth. They cared about just getting people together, and you could be involved in 1 or 2 or 10 small groups. You could only commit for up to 6 weeks. Sometimes they'd have a 12-week, but after that, they'd scramble them all up, and you'd have to redo them. They didn't care about deep leadership. They just cared about people getting together. And they had a very slight formula that they gave to these groups, and they were extraordinarily successful.
Yep. Was it you that gave me a handout of a Methodist church that had a bunch of interest-based things that's in my office as a model of what we could look like that's very similar to that? All I want to get now is I think this is a piece we need to add if we're going to be over here. Agree or disagree? I mean, we know the challenges, but... All right, the other pieces of spiritual development, these are 2 of our core values. And it goes along with the free thinking conversation we were having a little bit earlier. And this is that model of spiritual journey. And you've heard me preach this and teach this. You are all on a journey, and some of you are on the far right, some of you are on the far left, and some of us are right here in the middle, and some of us don't know which side we're on, and some of us have no clue there's even a question. Which one's right? Yes. Yes. The goal is to go alongside in relationship and walk with people, but not to leave it there, but to purposefully grow, and that's giving them the information. That to me is a non-negotiable, and that to me is a leadership skill that our pastors across the Presbyterian denomination do not have. You're probably more plugged into the denomination than most. I think most get on one side or the other and say, you have to be here. In the place where we are now, I think this is a primary leadership skill that needs to be developed. And for us, for me, I would like to continue to share what we're doing within our denomination. But this spiritual journey, purposeful growth, idea, concept in the spiritual development is vital. All right, last question, I believe. What is Trinity's strategy for growth right now? Good luck with that. You got 2 minutes to come up with what is Trinity's strategy for growth right now. Matter of fact, Patty's already said it, so there's no reason for you to discuss it. Patty, what is it?
Open the doors and hope they walk in.
Get you a young minister and a youth group guy and go for it. Anybody take it? I mean, we're being facetious, of course, but anybody will take issue with that? That's our strategy? Huh? Stephen? No?
No, I'm not taking issue with anything.
Anybody take issue with that? Churches don't think in terms of strategy. Because you all grew up in a generation where build it and they will. We don't live in that generation anymore. We have got to think strategically of how to get to people that think a guy's hanging up there on some sticks that don't know who Adam and Eve are. I'm sorry, huh? Oh, I know.
It's not just out there, we have people
Right.
in our church who don't do that.
Yeah, I know, which I find that hard to believe, but I mean, I know. Do you remember when I said to you that one of the scary things is that my dreams and hopes of ministry are so tied to yours, and hopefully they match, and I have 200 people that have veto power. We've now hit this moment where I want to share with you one of the strategies that I think can be effective in reaching out to people who are not here. And it's simply this: to come up with a specialized ministry that adds value to our community, not necessarily goes out and saves the world, but adds value to our community. We go to people who can do that ministry that aren't here and ask them to help us. I can't do this by myself. I need your help. Can you help me do it? Why, yes, I would love to do that. Why would they do that? Because they have a relationship with one of you. And because they have a relationship with one of you, they would be very happy to come apart and do that. In the building of the relationships, you then move them into the involvement of the church. Let me give you an example from one of the ways I am working at this strategy and asking us to embrace it. And that is simply this: to re-establish Trinity as the church for the arts. Now, a long time ago, this church was known for what? Its music program, its arts program. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to using our prime organ. Let's get back to using our connection with the arts. We are already plugged in with City Players. They're already here. We're already plugged in with the Tampa Bay Orchestra. We already are plugged in with Clearwater High School. They're here every Saturday, so am I. We already have those connections. And there are two churches out there that are doing, at least two churches that are doing this. One is it's a Catholic church in New York City. It's right across the street from the theater that is doing the Book of Mormon right now. I forgot the name of the road, but it's St. Malachi, whatever. Malachi? No, I don't know that word. But even in concrete, they have engraved the church for the arts, right there. And then Asbury Memorial United Methodist Church in Savannah, Georgia, is doing this as well. And matter of fact, this week they're doing a God on Broadway series with Civil War, Part 1 and Part 2. You will get a taste of this strategy in 2 weeks. This is why we're doing it. And you all know I do theater, you all know I have a lot of relationships that I've built out there. And what I did is said, I want to do a God on Broadway series. Now, I'm not saying we don't have the ability to do it with our choir, but I said intentionally, I want you to come in and do it. And you know what they said? Heck yeah! Can't wait! Jumping up, and they went and bought their own music. And we're going to have 5 soloists that are probably the best 5 soloists in the community theater area. We're going to have about 10 or 15 people join our choir for that one day. Now, what will happen after that? I have no idea. But we're going to add 20 to 30 people who normally would have never walked in our doors to come in. Does that make sense? Now, Sowing Hope is another example of this. Sowing Hope, Mike met because he needed some drapes sewn up. She came in, said, got the sewing ministry, and they put it together, and then a bunch of our people are coming, and a bunch of people that don't come here are coming, and we've already gotten a couple of new members out of it. Doing something we're not doing and asking for help to do it. It's really kind of simple, I think. But it takes endorsing something like for the church to say, yes, let's reestablish ourselves as the Church of the Arts, and let's work on that. And let's put the resources out there to do that. Jeffrey?
When we bring these people in, we need to have something that they participate in that is of spiritual value to them.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting something from them, but we need to give them something.
I agree.
When you talk about being a church of the arts, it makes me think of a church in London called the Church of St. Martin in the Fields,
Right.
which became an arts church, and now they have many concerts, wonderful concerts, wonderful orchestras, wonderful music, but I don't think they have church there anymore.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. Here's what from my own experience. Building relationships, building deep, meaningful relationships have occurred in two areas in my life, my experience, profoundly. One is at a Christian retreat, where we're often solidified and all of that stuff. Great sense of community. Incredible. The other is spending 8 weeks with a group of people putting on a show. Because at the end of 8 weeks, you know each other inside and out. Think about what would happen if you put those two things together. And made it not just we're doing a show, but we've built a Christian community theater company that intentionally once a week goes through the Milestones of Faith program. Voluntarily, you don't have to be a part of it, but models Christian community so that you're putting the two together. I mean, I'm not suggesting we just go do show stuff. I am not suggesting that at all. I'm suggesting build the relationships around them.
When we had people for hairspray in here, I don't know how many there was, how did we reach out to them after the church started?
I can tell you we have 2 people that came to that for the first time that are still coming. I can tell you that. But did we?
Are we doing anything intentionally that?
At this point, no. At this point, here's what I'm doing. I want to experiment and say it worked, or what's another strategy? Let's come up with something else.
I hear another angle to what you're saying. You are suggesting a freedom for people to bring the gifts that they have to this church and offer those gifts to the community.
Yes. And make that the focus with those of us who've been around the spiritual development path around a while to build the relationships that will eventually go there. You have to start where they are. Here's the point. You have to start where they are. Go to them and walk with them. Because they think Jesus is some guy up there with sticks. Not all of them, but
And a lot of people in the arts, a lot of them, from what you said, they don't feel welcome in the church.
that's true
And
too.
if you get them in the door and they see what kind of discussions go on, they may say, well, this is someplace I can feel comfortable.
That's true too. Marty?
This might be a good time to put the plug for Cedar Creek.
Okay. There's your plug for Cedar Creek.
I want to sort of tag on to what JD said, because I think follow-up is critical. Because I noticed, like with Hairspray, they were in here, they came in to perform, they came back out here. And some of them went into the back, but.
Most of them went to the back.
But then, when I went to Ruth Eckerd Hall, I was intentional, and I'm sure maybe other people did, when afterwards, when they were standing around and say, and thank you for coming to our church this
Yes.
past Sunday. So there's and you came to see us?
Yep.
But that just happened. I mean, it wasn't like I said, oh, I'm going to go there, thank them. But I think that's a piece that not just churches, organizations all over the place in this, is they do stuff, but there's not okay, what's the rest of the plan? And I know we're just in the infancy of this.
Yes. I am suggesting as a strategy that we use this, go ask people to use their gifts from wherever they are to come in and help us build the relationships and be very intentional about building those relationships. And we would, first thing I would like to ask us to do is buy into this strategy and to see if it would work. And I have several other examples. I'm just using this as one. This is probably the one that's on my front burner right now. I have several that I would consider being on my back burner down the road. But I don't want it to be about me either. I want us to look at the strategy, and if the elders say, hey, let's try this, like Sow and Hope or whatever, as well. So, but it's a strategy to how we go to people that would never come in our door. That's what I'm thinking through.
Well, and the lot of people that otherwise will not feel safe. It provides a context that's not threatening, and it's not intimidating,
That's
and
correct.
it's enjoyable to do. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Jesus Christ Superstar first came out, and I gotta tell you what, our youth group, which was a pretty busy youth group, ask Arthur Getz about that, but I mean, we buzzed for months, and the conversations we had with our youth group leaders about what does this mean? What happened there? I mean, we were going to the Bible. I mean, for pity's sakes, we were reading the Bible. This is the
We have one of those?
1960s. And it was like, honestly, it was the first time I had ever read the Bible on my own without somebody in Sunday school class saying, turn to this page.
Right.
And it you know, I think it can generate that kind of curiosity and enthusiasm safely. Maybe we've got the youth group, you know, maybe our youth group and a couple of other churches' youth group comes together and we use this stage or something like that. But it gets the whole church buzzing, and it gets a lot of good questions, and it's an outreach that keeps going and going and
Right.
going, I think.
And the cool thing about it is, at least how I have it envisioned, is at Lakeland High, we're doing worship service over here that's really cool, but we're also working over here as well. Because the arts transcend.
And the arts also transcend generations,
Yes.
and it can be very intergenerational.
Yep.
I know in years past we've had festival of arts here, and we had a lot of people from outside this church contribute, but I was amazed to see how many people in our church who had was in the arts of some kind
Right.
and contributed to it. So I think that not only with the youth, but this could be very much intergenerational.
You're going to see intergenerational on Sunday, or a week from Sunday. We're going to have all the way from Elijah, all the way up to our choir. You really do have permission to slap me anytime you want. I saw Shannon first.
Here's the brief story. When I was 14, I lived in Clearwater. I wasn't free to make my own choice about where I wanted to go to church at that time because my dad was a minister, and so I had to go to the church that my dad preached at, which I loved very, very much, and my faith was very deep. However, when I grew up and I had 5 children and a husband, we came back through these doors. And when I was 14, I used to come into concert series on Sunday afternoons that you all were throwing back then, maybe sowing seeds, and I would come attend those, and on occasion even performed here, because I was in the arts in our community. And so I did pantomime and came with a dance troupe and stuff. So I'm just saying, I mean,
It works.
fast forward, and here we
Right.
are 25 years, our daughter's gonna get married here, she grew up here.
Right. Stephen?
Oh, I think it's a great idea, what you said about being experimental. Indian Rocks Baptists are genius at this. They are always experimenting with some new idea for worship service or whatever. And they're growing like that.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? Yes.
I've been in this church a long time, and one of the things that has stuck in my craw that we've never really worked is the statement that you made from George Garner the other day about men at 60 are no more spiritual than they were at 10 years old.
18, but okay.
Whatever. But we have not worked a men's segment in this church somehow. I don't know how you do it, but
I think it's an important part, especially, I don't know if I should, I don't know, I have good news I want to tell, but I don't want to steal somebody's thunder. Somebody in our church is pregnant.
Not me, no.